This is MIdwest Moxie, a show about our region's visionary entrepreneurs and the experiences that shape them. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher, Executive Director of Five Lakes Institute. Linda Kinkle spent more than 3 decades studying the tiny microbes that live in soil and on plants. Over the years, as the University of Minnesota researchers' insight into these microbes' function and benefits grew, companies tried to license her discoveries. But Linda was never satisfied with their plans. Finally, in 2019, she took matters into her own hands and founded Jord Bioscience. The company is using her microbes to increase crop productivity, decrease chemical inputs, and improve agricultural sustainability. Jord Bioscience has 17 full-time employees and has raised more than $16 million. Joining Linda today is Keri Carstens, Jord Bioscience's CEO, and a key person in developing the strategy for how the company plans to positively impact agricultural systems around the world. Linda and Keri, welcome to MIdwest Moxie.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Linda, you've spent more than 3 decades studying soil microbes and collecting more than 6,500 samples. You've written hundreds of papers about them. What has been your biggest revelation about these microbes?
My biggest revelation is that microbes live and work and co-evolve in partnerships. That is, they're never alone. Interactions among microbes are central to all of microbial life. And if you think about what microbes need to do in soil, they need to colonize, they need to persist, that is, stay there, stay viable or alive, and they need to be able to perform key functions.
So they're kind of like people.
Absolutely. That's perfect. And just like people, everything they do in terms of colonizing, persisting, and functioning is profoundly influenced by who they're with, by having the right partners. And also analogous to people, those partnerships can be ones of conflict, but they can also, across that spectrum, go to a high level of collaboration, where organisms work together to achieve beneficial outcomes for each other, but then also for the plants with which those microbes are associated.
When you study them, do you look at them under the microscope? Is that how you figure this all out?
That's a great question. We sometimes look at them under the microscope, but more often we look at them in cultures. We grow them on foods that they like to eat, and we look at how they interact. We seek to understand what foods different microbes prefer, how they interact chemically. There's a wide array of chemicals that they exchange that could be negative. They could be things like antibiotics that can kill other microbes, but they can be signals that say, hey, I'm not a threat. Let's work together. And so in cultures in the laboratory, we look at how they interact using what we call phenotypes, which is basically different things like what do they eat, what chemistries do they produce, and how do those chemicals that they produce naturally, many of which are to communicate, how do they influence other members of a community?
How do you tell them apart?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. In some cases, they look really different or they smell different. Even though they're microorganisms, when you grow them in a culture, they're visible to the naked eye in a colony. So sometimes they look different, but more importantly, we use the genome. We look at their DNA, and that can tell us with a really high degree of specificity who a microbe is.
So kind of an impertinent question. Do you have nicknames for them?
Oh, we often have nicknames for them. Absolutely, yes.
Tell me one or two.
Well, we have Tough Guy, we have the Assassin, we have the Communicator, a couple of we call Mom. They're isolates that do a really good job of telling everybody else what to do. And so we have different personalities in effect of the microbes that we study.
That's awesome. Keri, this idea about how they live in communities and have partnerships and some get along and some don't was such a revelation to you that during your job interview at Jord Biosciences, you actually slapped your head. Tell us about that moment of slapping your head in the job interview.
Yeah, I don't know if someone should ever admit that they've done something like that in a job interview, but I guess I am who I am. I did a facepalm moment as I was listening to Linda talk about her technology and her research, because for me, it was such an aha moment that as an industry, I think we have largely thought of microbes similar to active ingredient chemistries. And that's not wrong in an approach to product development, but it's definitely not optimized. These are living things that have distinct nutritional needs. They operate in communities, like Linda just talked about. And so, how do you develop better performing products? It's by understanding what you are actually working with and the biology of those organisms. And so, that moment for me was a huge aha moment and thinking, as an industry, we haven't necessarily gotten this quite right, and we can do better, and we owe that to farmers. And I wanted to be part of it.
At what point, Linda, did you realize that your microbes were superior to many of the other commercial products? There were microbes on the market being used.
Yes, absolutely. And we started field trials over 30 years ago. And from the start, I was pleased with what our field trials looked like. We were seeing really positive outcomes. But the moment for me when I realized this is important and impactful, that came from the growers. Because I worked a lot with growers, especially in the potato industry, but also with soybeans. And it was when the growers would look at the fields or look at our results, and they would say, I want some of those microbes. Can I get this? Can I use this technology in my production setting? That was convincing to me. The growers that I worked with were really open to new technologies, and many of them were testing biologicals regularly. And they were consistently concerned about the lack of performance. And so it was the growers in the end who convinced me. And that was part of the push for me to launch Jord.
They were concerned about the lack of performance of the products that were on the market, not your microbes.
Exactly. Sorry, that was imprecise. But yes, they were trying lots of products on their fields and deeply dissatisfied with the outcomes. So when I would share results at the research meetings and the field trial updates, they were always clamoring to say, can we get some of this? Can we use this in our fields?
So you had the growers clamoring for your microbes, and you had companies over the years coming and wanting to license the microbes, yet you spent decades resisting all of this. Why?
That's a great question, because there was actually a mismatch there. The results I was showing to the growers were really based upon our partnership premise. We weren't going out with one single magic microbe and putting it everywhere. We actually had an ecology and evolutionary biology-based strategy that we learned from looking at microbes in natural and agricultural habitats, understanding how they needed partners to be successful. So that's what I was showing to the growers. Companies routinely would come with an interest in, I want this microbe, or I want your microbes, because we want to find the best one and put that one everywhere as if it's a chemistry. And the discussions where I'd seek to unpack that, well, can we think about this a different way? There was a real recalcitrance to consider alternative approaches. And then I would become frustrated because I didn't want to actually give up our microbes on a false premise.
How many microbes did you have at that, over the years?
So over the years, now we have thousands of microbes that built over 35 years. The fun part is, of course, because we do care about microbes at this point, we have sufficient microbes to put together 21 million distinct partnerships or 45 billion trios. And so that gives you an idea of the breadth and depth of our collection that we put together from a global bioprospecting and diverse agricultural and natural habitats. So we have a rich collection, but a really targeted approach to finding those combinations that can do great things for crops.
How do you even find all those microbes?
So, of course, the microbial world is teeming right beneath our feet. If you take a gram of soil, it can have 10 million microbes in a single gram, which is about the tip of your pinky finger. So we are awash in microbes. But having lots of microbes is not the same as knowing how to combine those microbes and knowing what to look for to create those partnerships. And so it's both for Jord. It was the development of a collection that can really inform this process of how do we think about combining microbes to achieve these beneficial crop outcomes. So it's the collection, and then it's the approach that we take and what we know about these microbes that really gives us what we think is the power to make ag better.
What got you interested in the microbes to begin with?
Oh, gosh. The fact that you can't see them and they're everywhere, and that they're so critical to life on Earth, right? We wouldn't be here without microbes. We're filled with microbes. But for plants absolutely require microbes for life as well. And we tend to think about the bad guys. got my PhD in plant pathology, and everything you learn is about the pathogens and, oh, look at these bad diseases. And the frustrating thing for me was all of the talk was the bad microbes and the realization that the good microbes are even more important for crops, but we spent almost no time studying those. So that's really why I focused on the good microbes in my career, because I thought it was a big void in how we thought about crop productivity and crop management. Pesticides, great if you want to kill this pathogen, but what about the good guys? So to me, that was an unaddressed space.
Is the assassin a good guy?
The assassin can be a good guy if the assassin's job is to take out a pathogen, right? And so that's a really great question. The assassin is not a good guy for other contexts.
Wasn't the University of Minnesota impatient with you because you were turning down all these opportunities to commercialize and to have people pay you to use these microbes?
It was actually the exact opposite. The University of Minnesota Technology Commercialization Team could not have been more patient with me in terms of meeting with external folks who wanted to license isolates, guiding me through the process, helping me understand the risks and the benefits of licensing. And at the same time, they were really active in encouraging me and trying to help me see that maybe, because I felt strongly about what this could look like, maybe my best approach would be to start a company, which I never grew up or went through my academic career thinking, I want to start a company. But the University of Minnesota, as a land grant institution, could not have been more supportive and in some ways visionary in helping us get here.
Well, and ultimately you did make the decision to start that company, and it was a very personal decision for you and part of what you felt a responsibility to do. Can you talk about that a little?
Sure. I take really seriously the fact that the University of Minnesota is part of the land grant system. The land grants were really established in 1862, the Morrill Act, which President Lincoln signed. And that Morrill Act was all about establishing higher education, that is education for the agricultural and the mechanical arts, that is for the people, not the coast, but for the people of the country. So it was education, it was research to improve the lives of individuals and families and the state and the country. And then it was finally outreach, it was getting technologies out. And when I look at that land grant mission and I looked at the work that we were doing, I wrote grants for decades, and every grant I wrote said this work will make ag better. And I spent literally millions of dollars in federal funds. And I realized that I would not accomplish the land grant mission if I didn't do something different, if I didn't say, how do we get the technology out? And that's really what Jord seeks to do, to translate our technology from the land grant institution to the growers.
We're talking with Linda Kinkel, founder, and Keri Carstens, CEO of Jord Bioscience, a St. Paul, Minnesota company that's aiming to use decades of research into plant and soil microbes to improve agriculture. We're going to take a quick break, then come back and talk with Linda and Keri about how they designed their business plan to improve hundreds of agriculture products rather than just one of their own. This is Kathleen Gallagher, host of MIdwest Moxie. We're back with Linda Kinkel and Keri Carstens of Jord Bioscience, a St. Paul, Minnesota company that creates microbe combinations to inhibit pathogens, stimulate plant growth, and increase crop yields. Linda, you launched Jord Bioscience in 2019 and hired your first employee a year later. Then in 2022, you went to hire a chief operating officer. What was so compelling about Keri?
Oh gosh, so many things. I can say at first on paper, she came to us with incredible commercial experience in seed treatment and regulatory, in leading teams and building teams, international teams as well as U.S. teams. She had a incredible reputation. So the fact that we could get her up here for an interview I felt like a real coup. And once she came in here, it was clear from the start, she's an outstanding communicator. She brought a positive energy, which was compelling, and a charisma that really helped us see what we could be, I think, together in a way that was exciting. And her temperament is a perfect blend. And you could see this even in the interview, but it's been borne out in the subsequent years, the ability to be calm in the face of chaos. Startups are chaotic and they're crazy, and there's ups and there's downs. And just the ability to maintain that calm in the center of the storm, we've been rewarded in many ways. Those things that we saw in the interview have all borne true in spades. So
I want to mention calm surrounded by all these microbes too. Like, I don't know how you keep track of them all and all the combinations. Keri, you left Corteva AgriScience, a very large agricultural company, to join this small startup. How did you calibrate that risk?
Yes. I actually had a great conversation with my mother about that when I was telling her about my my idea of taking a job change. I think the big thing for me is risk is often about perception, right? And similarly, the flip of that, stability, can be about perception. And I think there is a lot of change that's happening in agriculture all the time, but there's a perception maybe of stability in large companies, but in fact, there's often a lot of change and turnover within large companies. And so for me, it was about knowing what impact I wanted to make and what brought me true happiness in my career. And you can't go wrong when you pick those two things as priorities. I knew I wanted to be part of driving change and helping grow something, that I'd enjoyed that at other points in my career. And I could see with Linda's technology, with the team in place, and a founder like Linda, that we were going to make a big difference. And I wanted to be part of that. That was ultimately the decision making.
Okay, so you were both pinching yourselves after you met.
Yeah.
And Keri, you arrived at Jord, and you had some very definite ideas about how to acquire customers. What were you proposing to do, and how did it go over?
Yeah. When I looked at the depth of the collection and the approach, I knew we were bringing something different, both in terms of the microbial collection itself, but also how we were thinking about product design and product development. And knowing that actually was a gap in other parts of the industry, including some of those large companies, the idea was born to bring a business model forward where we would be working deeply in a collaborative fashion, just like our microbes, but in a collaborative fashion with these companies to design products, discover them from our collection, and partner together to do that early discovery and product development. And that's a different sort of a business model than a lot of what happens in agriculture.
With what kind of companies? With companies
the
that
existing incumbents in the industry, right?
Yeah.
So those that are that already have biologicals portfolios, that have channel access, and are actively selling to growers now. So thinking about how difficult it is for a startup to compete, to build a channel access and to build a sales force and try to garner the attention of growers when their farmers are incredibly busy people. So why try to replicate or duplicate that when that already existed? And I knew the gap was in the companies themselves discovering and developing rapidly these novel biological products. So that's really what we sought to do.
Yeah, there are so many analogies between that and the way your microbes work together that Keri so eloquently explained.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us an example of how one of these customer relationships works?
Sure. So we've got a number of different customers that we serve, but I'll use kind of an example. So we've had a company approach us looking to do a life cycle management project on an existing asset that they have. We've got a couple of examples of that. One is an actual synthetic chemistry, and another example would be a set of microbes that they've had as assets for a long period of time. And in that case of the microbes, the microbial example, it's a biofertilizer product. And they were trying to compete in a pretty crowded space, and their product just wasn't jumping out in terms of its overall consistency of performance in the field. And so they came to us asking for us to find a partner microbe that would enhance that existing biofertilizer product to be able to give them additional life cycle on that. And so that's what we did. We went within our collection. First, we scoped out, sort of verbally or doing brainstorm work together to say, what are the attributes that you want to improve specifically, or how do you want to differentiate that product? And then that gives us the guidance of where to look within the collection to find the right partner microbes. And we do a discovery and early development screening process that goes rapidly from lab to greenhouse to field, usually in under 10 months, which is really fast compared to what a lot of companies are capable of. And so we hand them leads for them to be able to test in their field trialing programs. And from there, they select the one that they want to license commercially.
And when they selected it, what did it make the fertilizer do better?
Yeah, so in that particular case, that's a product concept that's actively in the field as we speak. So it was focused on phosphate availability, so being able to increase macronutrient availability to crops.
And it's going well?
It's going well. Yeah, we're very excited about that. That product launch is pending. We've got some registrations in front of us that we're super excited about. So yeah.
So from a business perspective, is that kind of an Intel Inside model? Do they stamp, Jord Inside on the bag, or how do they make it clear that you guys are part of this now?
Yeah, that's active negotiations that we have with companies actually of what does the co-branding opportunity look like. And so, we're here to create value for growers at the farm gate. We're here to create value for retailers who sell to farmers, and we're here to create value for those tech providers, the technology companies that we talked about before. And by developing products and launching those that are more consistent in performance, you can capture return on investment at each of those phases of the value chain. And so when I think about what that looks like from a branding perspective, I don't think we are one that is super in need or needy of having a ton of recognition, but we want the right level of recognition for what we're bringing. So we're here to create value together, and we want to share in that value. And that can look like a lot of different options for the companies we work with.
So, Linda, now you've got your microbes out there. You've got the Jord Microbial Bank, a collection of more than 6,500 unique soil microbes gathered from all over the world. Are you hearing from those farmers that it's now available? And, what are the conversations you have about it now?
So a lot of our discussions over the past couple of years in Jord have been with other companies more so than with farmers in the field. We actually are working forward to get some work with growers. We've got a couple of different grants that are in process that would get us more out on farms. We have been focused pretty heavily on contract research organization field trials to give us that independence. When you're the university and you do field trials, you're doing it with your graduate students and undergrads, and you're doing everything, including calculating yields and emergence and so on. And even when things look great, as a principal investigator, the PI, you're always thinking, but what if I just gave it to a farmer? And the great part about Jord is we've been able to do something you could never do at the university, which is actually pay for field trials that are completely independent. And so over the last few years, we've done over 6,000 plot trials, and finding the results when we just hand off our microbes to completely independent vendors, research organizations to develop and generate the data. We feel there's power in that and taking it to our client partners. But we also think that when we get to that stage of talking with directly to growers and whatever that might look like, those data will also be useful there.
So, Keri, you go out to the companies that already have products on the market and you say, we can help you with your own unique micro cocktail. Right? Do you approach them? Are they approaching you? What does that sales cycle look like right now?
Yeah, if you'd asked me that in June of 2022, it was us approaching them. But now we've got a strong mix of both, where we have a lot of companies coming to us asking for our help and for access to our technology. And that's exciting, right? That's part of the proof points that we're headed in the right direction and doing the right things. I call that earning the right. That's kind of a phrase that we use and something that we take very seriously. Like, we have to earn the right with farmers, but also earning the right with the companies that we work with to be able to produce great things together. So, yeah, I think coming back to what does it look like, the proof points in the field, clearly it's yield. That's what brings dollars into a farmer's account, but it needs to be consistent. And so we take win rates really, really seriously in our field trial programs. And that's something that we work hard with these other companies and the research organizations to look at as well.
Are there enough companies out there to sell to, these companies with microbial products for agriculture?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many biological companies are out there, literally hundreds. So there are hundreds of different customers that we could be working with, and we have been really targeted and strategic about those companies that we actively work with in terms of the projects and the product concepts we develop with, because we are here to bring next generation products to growers. The type of performance that they always wanted, that they talked to Linda about 30 years ago, we are here to make that real.
You guys seem so aligned. I don't know which one of you I want to ask this question to, because I think you'd answer in a similar way. But here's the question. What's your vision for your Bioscience? How much can it grow and how much can it accomplish?
I'm going to let Linda go first on that one if she wants to.
I'll say a few things, but I think Keri and I are fully aligned, but we also might highlight different dimensions of it. For me, I want to fundamentally change the paradigm for microbial inoculants, and in doing so, dramatically enhance their adoption across the agricultural industry. That's really the core. And I don't want to focus on just that as the outcome, because in doing that, we can enhance the ecological resilience of soils and cropping systems by helping move, we needn't move away from, other means of management, but with biologicals as a cornerstone, it offers some opportunity to enhance resilience and health of soil ecosystems in ways that a purely chemistry-based approach might miss. We want to and are working with naturally occurring soil microbes, and we really do want to take our work ultimately globally. We see the potential for the developing world to really benefit from microbial inoculants that work. And Keri can give her additional richness.
Yeah, I think we are aligned, which shouldn't be a surprise, I don't think, to anyone. But we are here to revolutionize crop productivity. And how we go about doing that is based on the 30 plus years worth of work and the hard work of our team every single day. I think what drives all of us, for me, it's deeply personal because I grew up on a farm, but what drives all of us is that fact that farmers deserve better tools. And better means more consistently performing and with an impact that they never thought was possible. That's what we're excited to do. And we have a lot of product launches in front of us that will help make that the reality.
Clearly, the way you're building the company echoes the theme of how these microbes work together. And it's just a pleasure to have you on Midwest Moxie. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
You can read more about today's guest by visiting wuwm.com. Don't forget, you can also listen to the show as a podcast if you'd like to take us on the go. Just search for Midwest Moxie, that's MOXIE, wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'm your host, Kathleen Gallagher. Midwest Moxie was created by executive producer Audrey Nowakowski and me. Today's episode was produced by Audrey Nowakowski and engineered by WUWM's Jason Reevey. Join us next Sunday at 7 p.m. to hear from more visionary Midwestern founders building innovative companies. That's right here on 89.7 WUWM, Milwaukee's NPR. Support for Midwest Moxie comes from Microsoft, whose efforts to drive technology development across the Midwest and beyond include its National TechSpark community engagement work, which started in Wisconsin, its role as co-founder of Titletown Tech in Green Bay, and its new AI co-innovation lab at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. More information is available at Microsoft.com. Support also comes from Quarles, a multidisciplinary AM Law 200 firm with approximately 550 attorneys who support large and small businesses, from Fortune 500 companies to startups and entrepreneurs across the country. More at Quarles.com.